Hey Bill, thanks for joining the podcast series. Appreciate your time. I was wondering to discuss, the core topic about escaping the hype, how to test the real value of an AI product, given that right now times are really crazy and everyone is crazy about the AI companies and technologies. So maybe we can start with with the basics. Maybe you can tell me more about the Bulky team. Can you explain, guys, what your business does in one sentence? What problem is your company solving, and for whom?
Cool. Yeah. So, my name's Bill, and I used to work at Meta at the head of applied reinforcement learning, leading the entire reinforcement team for deployment across ads, recommender systems, AR/VR, data centers. And then I left Meta last October, end of last October, and
Mm-hmm.
started Pokey with the mission to build reinforcement learning centric AI agents that are able to really scale across thousands, if not tens of thousands of tools across the internet through tool usage, and then being able to build like AI native workflows and agentic workflows that can support developers and then enterprise customers on their daily repetitive tasks. And then the whole mission is to be able to build like secure, high accuracy models and infrastructure that can support any businesses across the world, to be able to like really automate and then incorporate all the tools they're already using into reliable workflows that they no longer need their employees to do redundant work about.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds really cool. And what was the idea behind Poke? In short, when was the founding idea born, if I can say so?
Yeah, so the whole idea came out, I think around end of like 2024, where we were like the team here, me, my research scientist, our head of ML engineering, we all have a lot of like thoughts about how reinforcement can really help the world. And then at that point, when we started, reinforcement was heavily used in reinforcement from human feedback,
Mm-hmm.
RHF. The idea is that you want to learn from human feedback on whether you humans will prefer one response or the other. And then internally at Meta, when I was working there, there's a lot of like more advanced outcomes that we have already seen. Like, we have being able to use reinforcement learning for ads creative rewrites, being able to use RL for ads pacing, being able to use RL for like video discovery for their consumers, and then being able to use RL for data center migrations. So a lot of these things are a lot more beyond just like learning from human feedback. It's actually learning from the actual verified rewards or even unverifiable rewards. And then that gives you a thought like, okay, what is the most kind of commonly used paradigm in the enterprise and developer world
Mm-hmm.
where using these kind of feedback or learning paradigm could really automate a lot of stuff and provide value to enterprise and developers. And the one thing that I thought of is like, from me, myself, and all the friends I know, the biggest waste of time or biggest like under delivered outcomes of today's software system is that you have to jump between 10 different apps to get one thing done, right? And then what if there is an AI that can really like streamline all of these apps in a complete automated way and then deliver the outcome like you would expect? So that's how Pokey came out, like being able to really use tools across the internet and then deliver the outcomes without minimal human in the loop efforts. Um, and one thing I do want to call out is at that point, reinforcement AI agents was not a topic at all. So when that came out October 2024,
Mm-hmm.
the funny thing is like I was talking to investors, talking to enterprises, they're like, oh, RL agents, what is that for? Like what all you need is LMs, right? Like you don't need to fine tune it with like some sort of like post training efforts. Like RHF is like the cherry on the cake type of situation. And then like 4 months later, when DeepSeek R1 came out, like all the investors, all the enterprises came back to me like sort of like Bill predicted the whole RL reinforcement agent thing and reinforcement fine tuning thing 4 months ahead of time. So so that's how the whole thing like sort of started to take off, and there's a lot of like interest come from investors, enterprise customers, and so on and so forth.
I got it. Well, that sounds really like like a crazy ride from Meta to your own product. By the way, you partially mentioned your team. I'm really curious about how big is the team that you have, because when it comes to all the processes, all these automations, I imagine that it might like I don't know, maybe hundreds of people. But in your case, I assume it isn't much, like around maybe 10 to.
Yeah, we're less than 10 people right now.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a pretty small team. Today in the AI world, everyone's like sort of a 10x engineer, 10x research scientist, 10x operations person, 10x product person. So you don't want a lot of people on a team to start with. Of course, as you grow, you inevitably run into the situation where you have to like take care of all of these like long tail efforts or long tail operations and long tail products. But in the early stage, you want to focus on what matters. Like a lot of things that it would actually take a lot of time to get perfect. It's actually not worth doing. Um, so to some extent, like I think all the businesses today and startups should focus on really the early, like the key product among all of these services they provide, other than like making sure everything's perfect. Among the team right now, we have many of them came from Meta. Right after I left, they are like, okay, this sounds exciting. This is like the future, and then they joined me. We also have some of the executives from pretty well-known startups joining us as research scientists and product person. And then we have other people coming from top universities and top giant companies as well.
Great, great. That's sounds like as I said earlier, sounds like a interesting joining, especially since
Yeah.
most of the folks you work with were at Meta. So yeah. By the way, I guess one of the core interesting points is that your recent closing round around 12 million, if I'm correct, that's been provided by Point 72 Ventures. And I'm really curious that you have a pool of really cool and well-known investors like 60 Degree Capital, Samsung Next. So are there any specific strengths or maybe values that every one of these investors bring beyond money, of course, because every startup dreams about bringing more money and attracting investors' attention, but is there anything else on the plate?
Actually, there's a lot. Like, venture capital world is a very small world. Like, if you look at the top, like tier one, tier two investors across the U.S., maybe even across the entire world. Like, if you look at European funds, and then funds from the USA, there's like less than like 1,000 people in the core group.
Yeah.
If you look at engineers, research scientists, there's like hundreds of thousands of people there. Like if you talk about the core group, it's still like tens of thousands of people. But if you look at like VCs, and then if you even look deeper into like the partner level, there's like probably like less than like 500 of them across the entire world. So it's a very small circle. So what that means is if you are able to land reputable funds like the top tier one, tier two, well like founded large ventures, then they open doors for you. Like, for example, if you are able to land like a top tier fund in your seed round, then they will make a lot of introductions for you for the next round. And then as you go down the road, because a lot of their companies exited with the top PEs, top pre-IPO deals, even IPO deals, they're able to help you land the best investment bankers, help you land the best PEs, private equity, to help you like really scale at the growth stage. So that's the number one thing they offer is the network. Second is like they really help with enterprise sales, because if you take like these funds that we landed, they are either like corporate funds that has like a huge network of like suppliers or customers, or they could be like the very well founded like funds that has like tens of billions of dollars in bank, and then they usually support a lot of or like use services of a lot of different enterprises. They can make introductions, talk to CEOs, VPs of different enterprises, Fortune 500s, to actually sort of land deals for you. So that's like something that you absolutely want to land like reputable and then top tier funds for especially in the early stage. One thing to be careful about is VC styles are very different. Some VCs are typically more like super hands-on.
Hmm.
Some VCs are like sort of more laid back, waiting for you to ask for help. It really depends on whether or not founders like are like more of like a need guidance style, or the founders know what they're doing and want to like have minimal kind of like distractions from VCs while they're executing. So be careful. And then when founders are fundraising, from my perspective, it's a mutual kind of fit process. It's like team match almost. If you
Oh.
if you join any big company, it's like team match, right? You want to like check whether or not the vibe from the VCs is something you like as well. So if you're like a very aggressive person, you're like, I'm pushing like my agenda. I have my advisory group like tells me what to do every day. And then there's a VC comes in and be like, you do this day one, you do this day two, you do this next week, or you do this next month.
Yeah.
You wouldn't like, and it's going to be a disaster relationship. Might as well not take that money. So just that's something to be careful about.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, it's a really great note about like a team match with the VCs, because it's like it's a team match or maybe tango. And would you mind me like asking how is it in your case? How strict is the core investor's role in your perspective? Are they expecting some kind of like milestones within some timeline from you, or they're like, okay, you do guys what you're doing, and that's fine for us?
And no one's gonna be like, you do what they're doing, and it's
Yeah.
never works that way. But there's a level of trust that VCs would place to
Hmm.
different founders. Some founders, they're early new grads. They just like came out of college, like some smart kid that just got out of like Stanford. I've seen plenty of them because like when I was at Stanford doing my PhD, um, that was something like I've seen like people do day by day. That I'm gonna do a startup on this topic, and then when I ask them like, okay, like if you want to do a startup in this topic, what is your like team? What is your go-to-market strategy? What does the product look like? What is your moat? Basically, defensible kind of properties of your business. Most of them like I don't have much idea. So in these cases, like VCs will actually be a little bit more hands-on and be like, okay, here are some milestones that I think you should place. Um, and then for more like mature founders, like someone who has been at like a big company running a organization for a long time, or someone who has done like 2 to 3 startups before, then these people are actually like much easier to
Hmm.
manage from the perspective. They will actually deliver outcomes and then actually sort of like list milestones and KPIs themselves. So it really depends who the founders are.
Okay.
Um, and then from my perspective, I usually give VCs like an expectation of like where I think things are going to land. Of course, there's no promise on anything because it's really early, but I'll usually tell them where things are going, give a quarterly update on where things are going, have like a bi-weekly meeting with them, and give them updates on people I hired, some products we're releasing, what are some metrics that we have seen, and then also like what to expect next, and anything else for help with. So that's it. I think it's a pretty straightforward process. It's much easier than dealing with your VPs at Meta, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But let's let's not talk about that part. You know what? I was thinking about like it's a really great experience, and I was also thinking about switching from VC swiftly and smoothly to the core of your product. And I know that pokey and like the way how you describe it, and the way how I see your business is this is really ahead for your company. But when running a business, there are always competitors. Otherwise it would be
Yeah.
really easy. How would you describe, okay, or maybe can you describe who are the main competitors for the pokey team right now?
Right. So we build AI workflows, and the workflow companies are absolutely our competitors. The classic ones are like NAN,
Mm-hmm.
Zapier. These are like classic drag and drop workflows. And then recently, OpenAI launched Agent Builder. That's pretty much just copy paste of what NAN and Zapier does.
Yeah.
And then you have a little bit more tangential ones like LangChain and LangGraph. These type of work. They're not exactly workflows. They build coding tools for you to build workflows on top of it through
Mm-hmm.
code. Um, in fact, like a lot of cases where if you look at Zapier and NAN, a lot of people actually use LangChain on top of those to sort of encode building something. And then you have, general agent companies like Manus and JetSpark. These folks are a little bit farther away from what I'm building because I'm mostly focusing on, developers and enterprise. But
Oh,
these are more like, complete consumer products. Let me quickly talk about the differences. There's so many of them, right? So in terms of workflow companies, the biggest sort of challenge that a lot of our users or our developers and enterprises telling us is like the workflows that they use on a daily basis is not as easy as like
mm-hmm.
10 nodes that you drop and then just connect them and then be done with it. Even for 10 nodes on an Zapier and agent builder, it takes like hours to build because you have to configure the inputs, the outputs, the
Yeah,
configurations,
exactly.
API keys, and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then we took care of all of that, meaning that with a single prompt, you get the entire workflow populated with all of the inputs and outputs connected, as well as all the API keys are hosted by Pokey. So you don't have to have like an Anthropic account to get Claude running. You don't need to have like a Gemini account to get Gemini running. You also don't need to like manually or yourself trying to get access to Facebook, Instagram. We have OAuth established on all of that. You also don't need drag and drop anymore. It saves a long time. So it's like 5 minutes, take care of like hours of work, and then reliably executing on every single task that you can think of. So that's on the workflow side.
Okay.
Um, we in the short term we don't plan to touch on coding yet.
Mm-hmm.
So to that extent, LangChain, these kind of work is not really a competitor. And then on the general agent side, there's a major differentiator that a lot of people are not realizing is reproducibility and then the map out of workflows. So here's an example. So if you were to think about like a market research workflow, you would actually like, okay, you have a bunch of people on your end, you reach out to 300 of your customers through email, you
Mm-hmm.
got that information back and know what their geographics is, and then you send out surveys for each one of them, schedule a call, have a meeting summary, summarize them, and then you have like another kind of step to like summarize these like meeting summaries into like statistics reports, and with the statistics
Yeah.
report you build a slide deck on top of it. All right, so that's the workflow. If you use a general agent, you would not know what the next step is. You describe that thing and then it will be like, okay, I'm going to do this first, and then God knows what's going to happen next. And then if you execute the same thing like 3 times in a row, you get 3 different workflows. And then it's unpredictable what's going to happen. But if you use Pokey, it's all predictable workflows, just like
Mm-hmm.
these like drag and drop workflows. But it's just that you only need a single sentence to get things done. So that's where enterprise really loves. Like you don't really need, like hours to build a predefined workflow. You also get all the reproducibility and then the efficiency from using Pokey.
I got it. Well, the way you describe it and the way it sounds, it's really like a game changer. Because I worked a lot sometimes with some auto integrations like Zapier and something else. Yeah, it takes a lot of time, and at the end of the day, it brings a headache because as a non-technical person you have to cope with all that stuff in order not
Yeah.
to bother you to tech colleagues. But so yeah, this is going to go improves a lot of things. By the way, what are the most like heavily used integrations by your customers, by maybe your best customers, was most often used? Because I saw a lot of integrations that you guys currently have. I'm really curious, what are the most popular ones?
Yeah, there's a couple of them that are really popular among our customers. One is on the marketing side, there's social media integrations.
Yeah.
They rarely you see a company or a influencer that only works on a single platform. They all work on like 10 different platforms, and then they have to fine tune their language, their video, their image on every single platform and then post. And they have to like copy paste, you have to like land all of these things like one by one.
Mm-hmm.
Just like single video post across all platforms with like tweaks on language and everything took like half a day to a day.
Yep.
With Pokey, it's just like 10 minutes, less than 10 minutes, and then the whole thing is done automatically with a single prompt.
Wow. So basically, let's say there's an e-commerce company who wants to post something new about the product. Instead of like hiring a manager and creating a scheduled post on several socials, you can just do it in
Yeah.
Pokey, write a prompt, and magnificent,
Yeah.
really magnificent.
Right. And then literally these like social and especially social media managers, they have to like be up at like 10 a.m. in the morning, like exactly sharp to get things posted.
Yeah.
But you can schedule it also. Like it can also be triggered through code that's gonna come out very soon. Where like you can use code endpoint to trigger it or even just schedule it. Like let's say you need a video post every Monday morning at
Mm-hmm.
10 a.m. Pacific time on TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and even Reddit and Pinterest. Just a single prompt. That's it. And then you don't even need to say it again. Next Monday is like automatically posted with your new content. So that saves a lot of time from folks. And then you'll see from the future launch that we're going to have that you're going to actually be able to specify in some format, like a table, that if it's a schedule view, you have like every week what you can post, and then it's automatically going to fit into that calendar, and then read from it, and then actually deploy that piece of content that you would like. So that's going to save a lot of time from folks, and that's one. Plus, by the way, on the social media side, we also support like commenting and managing like comments from a lot of the posts. So you'd be like,
Mm-hmm.
you can say something like, okay, every hour check new posts, and then reply to these posts in a personalized manner on YouTube, Instagram, and such. So you don't even need someone to sit there and watch these comments.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be automatically done by an AI. Same for messages. Like if there's messaging coming to your Instagram page, it's also going to be automatically replied on your behalf. Um, and then another thing is on the research side, like productivity and research. In fact, like a lot of them are using Pokey to like look into the internet, doing deep research, and then put together a whole report together, but in a scheduled way. Like you read from some meeting notes, read from Asana to get some tasks and understand the market, build together like a spreadsheet, and then also like put together a document summary. That's another thing that people use all the time. Another thing that people sort of manages a lot is their like daily productivity stuff on meetings, invites, emails, and so on and so forth. Because for people like salesperson, for people like founders, they get so many emails on a daily basis. They
Yeah.
have to manage their uh, calendar so aggressively. So Poki can read into your calendar and then be able to like every 10 minutes or every like hour when it reads new emails, if there's anything needs to be scheduled, it will look at your calendar and then be able to like find the open spots and put the meetings in without you having to like touch anything. So that's also very helpful because otherwise you have to have an assistant to look at it. So that's like some cases that people really like using Pokey, but in the future there's like more stuff like on enterprise customers, we are going to have some HR use cases. Excuse me.
Sure.
HR use cases, sales use cases, security compliance use cases, some legal use cases, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of stuff that we're sort of like mapping out, and then people are like giving us feedback on what they need the most, and then we're sort of building them out with the community.
Yeah, yeah, that's really great. And the thing that you mentioned about like CEOs as a sales manager, yeah, it's really good stuff about when you're trying to reach out to anyone. It's no secret that like personalization is the winning key in order to attract someone's attention. So I guess a lot of salespeople and account executives would really appreciate some kind of a tool that helps to grab something personal and attract CEOs, CTOs, or the decision makers attention. So yeah, I can imagine that. That sounds great. When it comes to integrations, one thing that really came into my mind, I'm really curious about, is that these integrations, I assume that they are not so you use some kind of API keys, API tokens in order to be connected. And my question is, how do you monitor integral maybe health, like credential churn, or I don't know, tool downtime? And what is Poke's protocol for a swift fallback if anything happens, like when it comes to API, something might be changed from the backend? So what's your backup plan in this case?
Yeah, so we do have a monitor system that very rigorously monitors any sort of API failures, any calls that fails. For example, recently there's like a huge incoming flow to Sora 2. And then there's API for it, and then it's like it fails all the time at 99%. I don't know why what's going on with the OpenAI, but they have that issue. And then so for these cases, we do have fallbacks. Like, okay, if Sora 2 is not working, we can fall back to VO3, we can fall back to CDance, and then there's a bunch of other models that we have like already connected, and so you can fall back. But cases like posting to Instagram, posting to Facebook, there's usually not a fallback because that's the API the company provides you, and then there's the failure rate is actually really low. I've never really seen any failures so far, but in these cases, usually we'll actually tell the user come back and check a little bit later. We'll also have like exponential backoff trying, meaning that if things are not working and then you're in a schedule run, then over time we're going to retry the whole thing again. So make sure that your thing is getting posted, your thing is getting delivered in the fashion you like.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. By the way, seems you have to as you mentioned, Bill, that you have a team that isn't big, but in terms of AI, when you have the power of AI, you can do some things 10 times faster and more efficient. But anyway, there is a lot of stuff that you have to keep attention about. I wonder if there is any kind of, I don't know, developer or partner system, ecosystem, or maybe SDK for adding new integrations, something like that.
So you mean like there's a customer that wanted to add like their own tool to Pokey so that they can run their own workflow?
Something like that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so we have a plan for that. Towards the end of the year, we'll have a SDK for people to actually like add tools to Poke ecosystem, either in a private sense or a public sense. Meaning that if it's a private sense, you give us an endpoint, but this endpoint does not expose to any other users. It's only your endpoint, and then you can call Poke to say, okay, here's an additional endpoint that I'd like to sort of streamline within the workflow, and then here's what to call it. We will actually take that thing and then sort of incorporate into your workflows that only you can use. And then if you like to share it with the public, we'll actually give you credit over time to incentivize you to give more tools into the entire ecosystem. That's one of the things that we're building actually. So tool ecosystem is what I think the future of internet is going to look like. There will be the agent sort of network where every single user, every single company will have things like Pokey that like does workflows automatically for you. But there will also be like tools that are accessible by these agents, and that's sort of like a two-sided marketplace. So you have these enterprise users, these developers, and then these personal users that will have agents that will have access to all of the other side, which is the tool ecosystem. And the tool ecosystem will basically be today's websites, today's APIs, today's like apps, and so on and so forth. So I envision the whole two-sided marketplace will eventually form in this way. Similar to today, actually. So you would think of it as you have a device today, and then the device will have connections to apps, tools, and so on and so forth. You have your operating system, and in the future, it might just be agent on your side and tools on the other side. So that's how I imagine, and that's why we're building the tool ecosystem very aggressively. Meaning that if there are new tools that are really good, approved by Pokey, then we'll actually share credits, revenue, and then all of that good things with these tool providers.
Yeah, sounds great. And when it comes to these endpoints and creating your ecosystem and SDK, unfortunately, for as long as there are some people who are willing to create something helpful, there are other people or companies rather than individuals who are interested in interfering with someone's business and gaining unauthorized access, and it raises the privacy question. So, what's your approach to detecting, maybe mitigating and recovering from accidental or harmful actions or leakage across workflows? Because there are a lot of data that's sent and get back.
Absolutely. I think the first thing I do want to call out is that the reason why we could allow very ad hoc or like customized tools to be added to Pokey is because we built our model that can be like very easily fine-tuned and very easily like very generalizable to across like a lot of different tools,
Mm-hmm.
even unseen tools. And then what that gives us is eventually later in the year, we'll actually offer on-premise services that anyone can host Pokey on their own cloud, and then they can expose tools through that. So there's no connection from their internal system, their tools, their workflows to the outside world. We take privacy and security as like the top importance to us because we serve like really big enterprises, and then we need to make sure that none of these information is ever leaked out to the public.
Mm-hmm.
And then over time, we're building with the three biggest cloud providers to actually have like a really strong VPC, like the security parameter, so that there's no information that is sensitive to the business can be leaked to the outside.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And since we're touching already the ground about enterprises and compliance, are there any kind of compliance standards that are already met? So enterprise representatives who would hopefully be watching this might be calm about pokey safety measures and so on.
Yeah, we by the time this thing publishes, we already SOC 2 Type 1 compliant, and then SOC 2, SOC 2 Type 2 compliant is on the way. We take this very seriously, and then we actually hire like the top auditor, hire the top company to do SOC 2 for us, make sure that every single detail is being reviewed. So we're very confident that we are taking this seriously, and then make sure that every single business, enterprise and developer using us will be able to like make sure their data doesn't get leaked, and then they have like a very secure and stable, robust system that they're running.
Yeah, sounds great. Regarding the business, would the assumption be correct if I say that the core target, not the target audience, but the core business you're focused on right now, along with the Poke team, is enterprise level companies?
Um, Not just enterprise. We go
Okay,
all the way up to developers and
okay.
even pursue up to enterprise, but we build the product at the enterprise level
Mm-hmm.
such that no matter who's using it, they feel secure about what they're using. Um, So the one thing that we do look at is a lot of the cases that enterprises are using Poke for is a little bit more customized than the
Mm-hmm.
standard developers and prosumers and small and medium businesses because they use off-the-shelf tools. Enterprises, they use internal tools. Like some of the enterprises we work with, even the internal chat system is like complete internal. Like there's no external API for it. So in these cases, you just have to be, make the model more robust and like sort of generalized, such that any of these, internal tools that they have can be incorporated into workflows very easily. But then the core of that is still like any external tools, any like public internet tools can be very easily streamlined, right? So that's why we have a lot of off-the-shelf usage from like developers and prosumers. They can directly say, okay, I want these like 5 tools being connected in this workflow so that things can be done. So we with that kind of capabilities, we can easily support these off-the-shelf tools, but also like at the enterprise stage, we can also support their customized tools.
Sounds really great, and I'm convinced that a lot of companies would really appreciate that and that approach when you have. And I totally agree about the enterprise companies. They prefer to keep a lot of stuff internal. By the way, we talked a lot of. I wouldn't say positivity, but anyway, we discussed a lot of possibilities that Pokey allows companies to do. But there is always but, and I'm curious, is there anything that you believe where right now Poke's current product maybe underperforms or performs not as you expected, like user types or maybe workflow types that you're.
Yeah. I can share some learnings. I think there's like a huge learning that we've got recently from talking to a lot of enterprise and prosumer and then developers. Um, API ecosystems and then the whole ecosystem across the internet is great. Like there's, especially in the United States, the entire internet ecosystem is so like there's a lot of freedom in it. It's like you can they expose their APIs freely to the entire world. Although some of them does charge them a little bit of money, like Twitter, but a lot of the others are like completely free. They encourage like sort of programmer access to a lot of their tools, their ecosystem. But there are limitations to what these tools can access. I can give a quick example. Like for example, if you want to like read into the latest like 20 product hunt companies and then click into it and look at the latest like 10 comments or something, there's no API for it like at
Yeah.
all. You just have to be on the website to be able to do it. In the long run, I do think there will be APIs for it,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe like 3 years, 5 years down the road, when the agentic system is the internet, then all the companies will be inevitably like forced to sort of deliver these kind of like information access to agents. But in the next like few years, I think there it's like a progressive thing that you don't immediately get there. So what do you do in the middle is something that we are sort of looking into. Um, so initially, when I said a lot of things in public, talking to investors, I said like browser use is not the future. I still think browser use is not the long term future. But in the short term or medium term, do you need a band-aid for the information that cannot be directly accessed by agents? Is something I think requires a little bit of effort. So one of the things that a lot of people are complaining to us is like, there's some websites or there's some deep research type of things that I just can't access. Can you help me? And then previously we just saying no because we only have like search APIs and then like the scraping APIs. We can only scrape the first page. And then when you get into a very detailed clicking, you can't do it. And then recently, and then very soon, we're going to release a model that is able to do that on behalf of users so that we can close these gaps in the middle. And there will be more things to be done over there as well. Like, for example, APIs do have a lot of limitations. A classic example, per se, like let's say you're on TikTok, and then TikTok actually does not have an API for direct messaging, does not have an API for commenting. So how do you do that? You can basically build compute use or type of like, you know, browser use type of agents that is able to like just do that single task. Once that's done, you can still fall back to like APIs or tool ecosystem. But then these like, these like missing pieces in the workflows can be done by a little bit of compute use and browser use. I think we're at the age of like drastic changes in the ecosystem in the internet that you require multiple systems to work together
Mm-hmm.
to make a workable product. But in the long run, it will all go into the tool ecosystem.
Yeah, that's really great and complicated at the same time, but sounds awesome. By the way, if the company wants to start using the Pokis tools, how do you guys charge per seat or per transaction? How is your monetization model based?
We're currently only charging by outcomes, meaning that only if workflows are successful, we charge.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we're not charging by per seat yet,
Uh-huh.
only per basically outcome usage. In the long run, if we have like really large enterprises, we do charge like a bigger contract per
Mm-hmm.
company. And then it will be basically evaluated at relative per seat level, but it will be heavy discounts, of course, with enterprises. But we believe in outcome based pricing, meaning that if there's like 50 users in your company that's never using it, why are you being charged for it?
Yeah, exactly.
That makes it easier for especially medium-sized companies to be acceptable to the price. They're like, the number of workflows I run is roughly how much I'm charged. Of course, there's subscription, so you're not exactly at that level, but you'll be at the ballpark of that kind of usage. Not like going too crazy on it.
Yeah, no, that's really sounds helpful because a lot of companies they prefer to use this seed-based subscription, and even within the seed-based subscription, there are limitations within like tokens or number of requests, etc. So it's really sometimes frustrating when you have a lot of requests and a lot of integrations. Finally, we're getting to the topic, I guess, about escaping the hype. So, Bill, what AI agent industry claims do you find the most misleading, and how does Poki avoid these traps? Because there is a lot of sayings about AI agent, a lot of claims. So, what are your thoughts about this?
This is a crazy topic, man. So in the world today, it's very different from how you advertise or how you push or market products. In the just in the last 12 months, like in the last 12 months, there's so many products that got out.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, there are these like general agent products that spends like millions of dollars per, you know, month trying to advertise with influencer marketing, with ads. There are all of these companies that's like pushing heavily with their power users, trying to like claim different things. There's a lot of like companies building communities, and then doing referral programs. So the whole market is so noisy right now. The key thing that we think are helpful is to form a strong like group of design partners and enterprise users that can give you quick feedback and take the feedback and run from it. Um, and then also developers as well. Like you take a core group of developers, form a community around it, and then take these feedback internally, and then being able to like very quickly iterate on those. That's sort of something that we are very heavily working on today. We actually made an early mistake to not like very heavily rely on community, and then really built like a lot of marketing stuff, a lot of like working with. Although we haven't spent a penny on like paid marketing yet, there's like very little like PR about Pokey on the internet at this point. But we did do like a lot of like offline events. We did do a lot of like workshops, conferences, and all of that. But doing those without like actually forming a community is not going to help you get like very quick feedback. The feedback is all like second wave. It's like you push it out, people use it, and then somewhere you hear the feedback. But then if you actually have a community that everyone's like actively using it, actually trying to solve problems, then your product is going to get feedback very, very quickly. So that's something we're actively building, and we are already getting like awesome feedback from our users in the community on like, oh, this thing's broken, this UI doesn't look right, or the model is not accurate on this thing. There's some hallucination here, right? All of that things that really helped us, and then we're gonna keep building this. At some point in any company's journey, you need promotional content, you need ads, right? So once like we get to a stage where things are, we're confident about certain side of the product, we're confident about, people can like it, there's like very large self-serve usage, then we're gonna actually push with a lot of promotional content. In the short term, we're gonna do it lightweight, like use the community, work with our enterprise customers, work with our developer customers, really help them solve their problems. And then we want to see the hockey stick growth. Because if every one of them that we serve is already satisfied, then everyone else, there will be like tens of them, hundreds of them that will be satisfied as well.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that you mentioned this topic about like some kind of limitations, or would rather say expectations. Are there any kind of, let's call them honest limitations, that you try to share upfront to set expectations within users, and what would you consider outside your current scope?
Yeah, so one of the things that you'll see very soon on our website is what we call our capabilities, meaning that for every single tool, the number of APIs, even with a little bit of browsing, it's still limited. So one thing that we are building very soon is not only you see that in like a library kind of format, you see like, okay, for every single tool, what you can do with it, but also Pokey knows what it doesn't know, meaning that if you ask Pokey to do something it cannot do, it's actually going to tell you that this is out of my scope. This is something I cannot do. It will not like hallucinate the entire workflow and tell you like, oh, I can do this, but then it fails in the way. It's actually going to upfront tell you, okay, this is outside the scope because I can only do blah, blah, blah on this platform. And you're asking for this, and hence I can't do it. And then that's actually really helpful. There's a lot of developers ask for this. They're like, I tried to do this, I think it can do it, but then it cannot do it. I don't understand this, why? And if Pokey can be upfront about it, I think it will actually solve a lot of people's concerns and confusions.
I got it. I got it. That's really cool. That's really cool, Bill. That's really cool, and it's mind blowing. And one thing that also was circling in my mind, I guess, is that with all these limitations, expectations, how do you proactively manage customer perception so that expectation for a specific AI agent is grounded in realistic, repeatable, and monitorable outcomes when the outcome is more or less as monitored or predicted? I don't know how to say it properly.
Yeah, so that's a very big question, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, because today's world, you sort of like, I don't know what your experience is, but me and most of my users, they basically browse through like 10 different AI agents or LM companies and be like, okay, I'm going to try this prompt across all 10 companies and see what happens. And then if one of them lands, then they're going to use that for a little bit. And then like the next task comes in, it's going to try all the agents and then find one and so on and so forth. Um, that's actually really a big pain in today's
Mm-hmm.
world because people have just switched over between different agents and LLMs
Yeah.
so much. um, One of the things that we are sort of building is to allow users to, like, at least within our Google ecosystem, to sort of find the best model, find the best like tool to solve their problems within Pokey, so that they don't have to switch over between different agents and so on and so forth. But there will be limitations. Like I said, like, there will be tools that we don't have. There will be like tools that we just can't do. And then in those cases, we will actually just proactively tell them, and then if there are scheduled workflows that has issues, we also have email notifications to tell user, okay, this is failing 3 times in a row because of this. Go take a look, and then here are some recommendations we can help you. Like, here's some workarounds that potentially could help you with the problem. That's to the extent that what you can do with AI today. Of course, there's a newer wave of like things that we're also trying is to discover tools. So today, most of the AI agents that when they're executing, they're pretty much just, take existing tools as
Yeah.
sort of almost like a repertoire, and then be like, okay, I'm gonna execute this task and then sequence these tools one by one and get things done. But then if there's a missing piece, it'd be like just throw your hand in the air and be like, okay, I can't do it, right? But then there's a new paradigm, like, okay, if there's a set like tasks that I can't do, I'm actually going to be able to invent some tools and then on the fly solve that problem. And then that sort of leads to a bigger question in the AI agent world today. A lot of people are asking, okay, there are these big players with tools that, like, Google Workspace, there's Microsoft Office.
Yeah.
On the coding side, there's like Visual Studio Code and so on and so forth. Are these tools going to be able to keep their monopoly in the long run? Like, if AI agent can sort of invent a new tool within 5 minutes, are we going to just use the new tools, or are we going to use the existing tools? That's a bigger debate. I don't think we have enough time to cover that, but I think this is sort of a trend that a lot of people are talking about. If I were to put like a 1 to 2 minute answer to that, I do think the network effect is sort of where the bigger tools or existing tools can survive. Meaning that if there are people connected on this tool, for example, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, people have like these connections, followers, and all of that, that sort of helps you keep that tool alive. But then if it's a pure utility tool, there's a bigger chance of getting overridden by AI written tools, because that makes the workflow so much easier. And then the limitations got completely erased if an AI just invents that tool and get things done for you.
Yeah, totally agree with you about that, Bill. And you mentioned one thing about my experience here. I'm not often using. I wouldn't call them agents, rather than like all I would call them all the GPTs for me, since they're based in different various language models. But I agree with you about all the stuff that every model brings you different outcome, especially based whether it's paid subscription or not. So this is the core frustrating part. And I also had a comparison when I was analyzing some data. I was trying to write a script, and every model gave me a different answer. And the reason is that there is a lot of routine that might be saved with agents, AI agents, monkey job routine that's like can be spared. Like, for instance, if a sales or a marketing manager plans to do some reach out, he has to prepare to build his ideal portrait of the customer, to analyze a lot of data, and ideally AI agent should be helpful with that. But what the core challenge about why different lot of companies use various tools, I guess, and this is all you also prove that every model, every agent provides different answer, a different outcome, and you just find yourself stuck in the middle of the ocean. Like, what should I use? This agent doesn't give 100 certainty, and this one I don't have like pink eyeglasses, and I understand that every model has its setback and maybe draws, but at the same time I would love to have something that gives me more positive oriented result that I'm not concerned about. So yeah, this is a really debated question. By the way, since we're discussing this functionality, one thing that also came to my mind is that was there any kind of I don't know, high-pitched feature or use case that you intentionally rejected after validating, I don't know, maybe real-world feasibility or risk that was connected with it, and why?
Yeah, that's a really great question. We actually have a lot of features we didn't release
Oh.
that we already do internally. So a classic example, Meta and Google Ads. So you already have integrations with Meta and Google Ads, and then if you're internal to Poke, you can actually run, like you can literally deploy Meta ads from end to end, including objective, budget, targeting, and then duration, all of that inside Poke. But we didn't release it because there's too much risk. Like people spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on ads, and then you mess up single tiny bit of that. Who's going to be responsible for it, right? That's like it's a disaster if you mess things up. There are companies in the world that actually does that kind of work that just like helps SMBs to like make like ad deployment easier, but they're also a lot more sensitive to budget. So if they spend like $100 on it, they'll be expecting, most of them expect unreasonable outcomes from these ads. Because I used to work at Meta ads in the early days of my career at Meta, and then I actually grew Meta's active advertisers from 2 million to 12 million over there. So I meet like hundreds of thousands of like SMB advertisers all the time. A classic response that people talk about when they're running ads, especially their SMBs, they're like, I spent $100, I expect like 10,000 impressions, and with like 30 or like 100 views to my website and purchasing like 10 orders, 20 orders. That's not going to happen. It just doesn't happen with $100. So they have like unexpected, sort of like unreasonable, almost like expectations to the outcomes of ads, and it's always like, they overestimate the outcomes from their ads. So if you have an AI agent that deploys ads and say, okay, I promise best delivery outcomes, then they're going to expect more from your agent, and then you're going to fail. So that's where I think it's really risky to roll out these features. There's payment related, there's regulations, there's compliance, there's like unmatched expectations. That being said, there's like companies doing this work, and we're more than happy to support them. And we're actually in conversations with these companies to see how our agent can help them their lives easier, because they are painfully doing their integrations, but they're not doing a good job. But we can do it. But I just don't know like if like a company like us, like a general workflow company, can actually serve it, like sort of really serve the satisfaction of these customers well.
I got it. I do appreciate this extensive answer because, yeah, I understand that it would be really hard, and even right now it's challenging to answer it in short. In bringing up the summary of all that is said, one of the things that I'm really curious is that being head of applied learning, if I had the correct position at Meta, right?
Apply reinforcement learning.
Yeah, exactly. I'm really curious about, was it really challenging for you to leave the Meta? Because finding a startup, of course, compared to Meta, it might be a small number, but anyway, with lots of insights, lots of data, and understanding how it works. Like, I heard stories about like Google and Meta, they prefer to pay big numbers for their key people in order to stay in company rather than to leave them. So was it challenging to leave Meta and to find your own company, find your own startup?
I think it's on the money side is absolutely challenging, because I can't give you the exact number, but I gave up probably like, I'm not paid like 10% of my original compensation, or even less than that. It's like something like 8% or something. I don't have the exact number, but it's like really small. But I think it's rewarding because AI, the wave of AI, is probably once in a lifetime, almost like an industrial revolution type of opportunity. And you really in someone's lifetime be able to encounter this. If you think about people who were born in the 1950s, 1960s, the only thing they get to go through is the internet revolution. But the internet revolution, I believe, is not as big as the AI revolution, because internet revolution helps you passage of information. It doesn't help you generate information. It doesn't help you really build knowledge. It doesn't help you get execution on things done. Um, so it's sort of a difference from sort of grouping of information to innovation of technology and knowledge in the world to accelerate humanity's advancements. So it's a different type of. It's almost like if you look at the comparison between industrial revolution and internet to the difference between internet and I would say the sort of the advancement that you'll see from the industrial revolution and AI will be similar. The internet is sort of somewhere in the middle that helps you sort of connect the information and connect the dots. That being said, without internet revolution, we wouldn't have AI because you wouldn't have the data you need on Wikipedia, you wouldn't have the data you need on Reddit, on Google, and so on and so forth. So that's the reason why I quit, because I think even if the company is not like as big as Meta that I built, it is going to contribute significantly to how enterprises are going to use AI to revolutionize their efficiency, their outcomes, and then developers as well, prosumers as well. I think it's an exciting vision, an exciting mission to be on, where you can be part of the wave. If you were to be at Meta, of course, I can help them build a better reinforcement model, help them like get their model to be better by like 2%, 3%, but it's not going to change how people are going to use AI, how people are going to be having better lives, better outcomes.
Yeah, yeah. Also, one thing that came into my mind, was there any assumption that you had to abandon while building the Poki team, and how did you change product or process in response, given that you had to
Yeah.
abandon it?
Yeah. So there are a bunch of them. Like the browser thing I mentioned. It is one of them that I was really strongly believing that browser shouldn't be a thing for AI. It should all be tools, and eventually, like just like a whole, there should be a database of every single website. There should be an API registry for every single tool, like service. But then, sort of later on, I'll be like, okay, we maybe need a little bit of browsing for the interim. There are a bunch of else. For example, originally I was thinking about something like, okay, is there like big difference between how we do it versus the general agent does it? The original thought I had was actually there's probably not that big a difference. But then I talked to a lot of enterprises, talked to a lot of developers. Why they are still using NAN and Zapier is because they want to be able to see like what is or all the tasks that are going to be executed. And then with general agents, you will never be able to do it. With like if you just use OpenAI's GPT or if you just use Cloud, you'll never be able to do it. And then that's actually really important. That's a assumption that I was wrong. Maybe I didn't abandon it. It's like sort of proving that the thing I built has a bigger value almost, but it's like an interesting proof to my point. Some other stuff are, and originally I also thought like e-commerce, especially the 2C side, like the consumer side of e-commerce, has a big usage of agents. I sort of took it back till now because what agent really shines is when there's a long sequence of tasks, and then it's really hard for humans to really navigate themselves. But then for e-commerce kind of use cases, there's only one case that it can be really useful, is if you are as big as OpenAI, and then you have the entry point, and then you know how people sort of navigate their life. They know how people sort of what their needs are, and then they have like a vague shopping question of like, I need to go to this event, I need to buy something, and then give me something. Then like teams like OpenAI or Amazon, they can get this done pretty well. There's a bunch of reasoning in that. But if you imagine you are building an agent for an e-commerce company, or you're just building an e-commerce agent yourself, there's not enough context for you to reason about, first of all. Second, this chain of actions is too short. There's not too much to be done in the chain of actions to make it very valuable. And then what is the outcome you want to deliver? The only value you can deliver to the consumer is the best fit and the best price, right? And these things are already done pretty well by the established, giants. So there's like the incremental value is really small. So originally I thought like shopping is a really good use case, but then I sort of like took it back completely at this point. But I do believe that OpenAI, Google, Amazon actually can do a fantastic job on this.
Yeah. Totally agree with you, and definitely makes sense. So I also I'm convinced that Pokey is going to bring a lot of value for companies, and I'm convinced that even within our company we're going to start using, because it really sounds helpful, and especially time saving, in order to, like, just to write proper prompt and save up a lot of time rather than using some Zapier integrations. I know that we use some of them. So yeah.
I hope you have a deeper conversation about this and help you guys build up because we are still testing with a lot of our clients too. So we'd love to partner together.
Yeah. Let's see what we can do. I do appreciate your time for the podcast, Will, how to test the real value of an AI product. Let's keep in touch, and thank you for participating in the
Yeah.
podcast.
Thank you so much. Talk to you
Thank you.
soon.
Talk to you soon.